The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Shall we begin? Let's begin.
In the current age of blockbuster Marvel movies, it is difficult to remember an age when adapting comic books to movies was toxic in Hollywood's eyes, an absolute waste of time and money. Tim Burton exploded that myth with his take on Batman in 1989. Decades later, you can find countless movies that are based on comic books, and often the movie audience is completely oblivious to the source material. I'm Todd.
And I'm Dave, and we like to talk about spy movies.
The Red comic books are dark and almost obscenely violent, but somebody in Hollywood saw potential to make this a colorful comedic spy fantasy, and we're going to give it our usual tradecraft treatment in this episode of Spies Like Us. Red is a 2010 film. It is contemporary fiction. Primarily features the CIA, one KGB agent, and briefly a South African mercenary hit squad. Based on a comic series by Warren Ellis, who also wrote James Bond comics for Dynamite. So I guess they liked him as a spy writer for comics. He's also written some X-Men and Iron Man stuff for Marvel. He's mostly known for his independent creations like this one, and also Transmetropolitan. You ever heard of that one?
No.
That is a comic that's basically it's Hunter S. Thompson in a cyberpunk future kind of character.
It sounds like right up your alley.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, it hits a lot of my buttons. The comic, I did get my hands on it at the last minute, the first couple issues, and yeah, not funny like this movie is.
This movie's hilarious, by the way.
Of the spy comedy movies we've done on this podcast, this is the first one we've done, in my opinion, that is actually genuinely funny. Although jokes about women being abducted, if those trigger you, there's definitely some stuff here that is not going to hit you as very funny at all, I think.
I don't think it would trigger anybody other than dudes trying to pretend to be feminists. Because apparently, if this is a reference to romance novels, there's tons of abduction in romance novels. It's pretty silly.
I give massive credit to this actor. What's her name? Mary-Louise Parker as Sarah Ross. This is she's got just the right mix of some kind of chemistry and some kind of relationship with danger. And her, thrilling to it, that carries the movie in a way that I think was really necessary for it not to seem awfully weird. And everybody in the film is definitely like playing on Bruce Willis's wavelength. Malkovitch, Mirren, Brian Cox, Richard Dreyfuss. These are people who generally have some serious dramatic chops. I said the same thing with Sneakers with a movie like this. Like, it's so essential that everyone is like playing at the exact same like frequency of seriousness, or it's not going to work, like
right.
The band has to be playing the exact same pitch of the song or something. And the pitch of this song is, of course, like the standard Bruce Willis wavelength, because you can't super expect him to like move it up or down a notch. I love Bruce Willis, but yeah. So yeah, really funny. So I was going with it's a comedy. It's like if you put the flavor of Sneakers onto the Bourne Identity plot, and then mixed in a little Romancing the Stone. Like in Romancing the Stone, the female character is like someone that is into these spy romance novels, and Bruce Willis is kind of like a character that stepped right out of the books, similar to the way that Michael, what's his name, is just exactly like a character right out of Kathleen Turner's books in Romancing the Stone. And It's not just my intuition that says that, I think, because someone else pointed out that the book that they're both reading is it's called Love's Savage Secret. And the two novels that were referenced in Romancing the Stone, written by the main character, were Love's Wicked Kiss and The Savage Secret. So Love's Savage Secret is kind of like it's probably an intentional like combination of those two things, I think.
Oh, nice. That's a nice Easter egg.
I would say this movie makes almost no goddamn sense. There is a plot. It's just the movie isn't super interested in plot consistency and is having just way too much fun laughing at itself to like take itself seriously.
I mean, not to downplay the film, but you're absolutely right. Like when you actually like sit down and have those icebox moments, like we don't want to downplay this film as far as like you're gonna enjoy watching it. It's a lot of fun. Like I would highly recommend it.
The movie's got an almost cartoonish disregard for the consequences of violence. Like people really just waltz through like all these life or death situations as if it's kind of a joke, you know. And it's supposed to go to the like the comedic conceit of, you know, been there, done that, you know, been through this, you know, done this 100 times before. That's a funny tone to take, I think. I just wanted to point it out. It was very distinct to me.
Yeah, the dark humor of death kind of reminded me of like Grosse Point Blank.
You know, Grosse Point Blank even's got like way more gravitas to it.
Yeah, right. Right.
This movie is light on its feet, but it dances quite well. Everyone is like, all the characters are constantly talking about how they, you know, they might try to kill each other like at any moment or have reason to, but nobody's guard is ever actually up. They just kind of play that for the laugh, the wink, and move on. Nobody's actually like watching their backs.
Yeah, it's kind of like a real recognize real. You know, like in any industry, like it's a small circle, you know what I mean? And so it kind of helps to the suspension of disbelief on a lot of spy films, that you would think like this is your trade, like you kind of know everybody in the trade. So like I think that's where that trust kind of comes from.
I still think it is worth the minus spy points dinger for the fact that, you know, you present the concept that I might try to kill you at any time and then just completely forget about it. (2010) Bruce Willis. I mean, Bruce Willis, he's still kind of on top of his game. I don't know. I mean, he's in the latter part of his career, but he still does cool stuff. Although he does seem to also be doing, like, since then, a lot of just cashing a check kind of movies. I think the number of movies that I've seen ads for saying like, "Hey, remember me? I'm the guy from Die Hard," is a lot. And I even see there's another there's a movie called McClane that's in production somewhere along the way. So still kind of beating that dead horse, and I'm definitely over John McClane. I mean, Die Hard is still one of the best movies of all fucking time, but I don't need to keep having more and more of those. I'd rather see him do stuff like let's see what's he done also since 2010. Moonrise Kingdom, fun in that, and Looper. Those are two solid movies that I think both made really good use of his talents. Notes on other actors that I had. I have been on record for a long time that I just at some point I felt like I was completely saturated with Morgan Freeman. You know, I've loved him in a lot of stuff, but at some point it seemed like, you know, like, come on guys, there are other older black actors in the business.
I kind of feel like the same way you do, that like Morgan Freeman gets really typecasted, like they're just trying to bring Shawshank Redemption back. you know, but um, like he has actually a lot of talents that really get overlooked, and I think we got a little bit of a different Morgan Freeman in this one.
I agree. I did like him in this. Um, Helen Mirren specifically signed on this movie because she wanted to work with Bruce Willis. That's that's a little bit of a head scratcher, but okay. Um, and she specifically trained for she did 2 weeks of firearms training for this movie. Awesome on her.
She's a very great actress. I don't think I've ever had a problem with her. Like just going back into her stuff.
What's your favorite? I know the name. I'm having trouble thinking of Helen Mirren movies. What's one you like?
Well, she was the queen in Prince of Egypt, and I know you're the one that like hammered that into me. But I also know something that you're a big fan of.
What's that?
She was Morgana in Excalibur, 81.
Oh, that's right. Oh my god. Oh yeah. Yeah. And I see here too, Gosford Park as a fan of that one. I think though generally, I think she mostly shows up in movies that are not the kind of movies that put my butt in the seat at the theater. But
Right, but I mean, like I don't think I can meet anyone in the entire world that would say Helen Mirren's a bad actress. Like she's fantastic.
Ernest Borgnine shows up in this one. This is right at the end for him though. He's 93 in this film and dies 2 years later. Was working all the way to the end. In fact, his last credit was voice work stuff for SpongeBob SquarePants. What a
I
champ!
love SpongeBob. Yeah, no, seriously. Oh, oh. I love when actors are like dedicated actors. You know, when you look at their list and they're just like always in something.
Yeah, never stopped working, which warms my heart because clearly acting was very important to him. I did a check for Borgnine's spy movies. I found one in 1960 called Man on a String. I added it to the list. Maybe we'll get to it someday. We get more Carl Urban in this film. I've always been like a low-key Carl Urban fan, especially when he was cast as Bones in the Star Trek reboot. Bones McCoy being my favorite character from the original series. I was like, what the fuck? That makes no goddamn sense to me. Carl Urban, I was thinking about all his movies that I'd seen him in, and I was like, this guy's a mini boss. This guy is not. This guy can't play Leonard McCoy. And I distinctly went into that theater with my arms firmly crossed, saying, "Okay, I'll try to keep an open mind, but let's see what you got here." And then from the moment he shows up on screen, I was like, I think this was the greatest casting decision of all time. As far as being able to spot the diamond in the rough of what he could bring to that.
Funny enough, I didn't recognize him in this until you pointed it out. I was like, oh shit, we got another Carl Urban. The problem is I think I had binged The Boys since then, and all I could see is that beard. And he doesn't have an accent in this. He did the well, he does. He has an American accent because he's British, I guess.
Is he?
I believe so.
I'm gonna check that. I'm thinking New Zealand. Yep.
Oh no, never mind.
Yeah, I'm thinking New Zealand, and yep, I just looked it up, and that's the one.
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely New Zealand.
But yeah, he's. I feel like in 90% of his movies, and this is probably not true. It's just my impression, but I feel like in 90% of his movies, he's just the guy that the hero needs to beat up before he can get to the final boss.
Yeah.
That's about all I had to say about the movie itself. Anything else from you before briefing room?
Not really, other than I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah, like This movie is very rewatchable. Um, yeah.
Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
Frank Moses, when we get introduced to him, all we know is that he's retired and that he's got a flirtatious relationship with some chick that's supposed to be handling his pension checks. When he gets attacked by a team of very serious looking SWAT equipped motherfuckers in his home, the movie knew that it didn't need to previously establish to us that he's a badass because we already know he's Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Right. But, you know, at that point, I don't think they'd even mentioned that he was retired from what, you know, although it turns out to be from the CIA. In the assault scene where, of course, he cleans their clocks and utterly destroys them. A few fun things. First one I wanted to mention is this corner shot, which is an Israeli developed weapon accessory. The weapon itself is it's not exactly a firearm. It's more of an accessory to which several different types of machine pistols can be mounted. And it was first demonstrated in 2003. So yeah, by 2010, it had definitely been around. I was just kind of surprised something like this neat, that it's 2020 is the first time I'm seeing it on screen, because you would almost expect to see it in every SWAT movie.
Right.
I did not understand why they had a syringe. And, you know, obviously that implies, because they could just kill him. Well, I guess it implies a few things. Number one, could be they were trying to take him alive. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Right, because the objective was to kill.
I just thought of just now, I thought of what I think is actually the explanation of the syringe, is because they probably want the end result to not look like he was murdered. And that's because I just remembered that of the people on the list that we know have been killed and how they were killed, one of them was a heart attack. The other was a car accident.
But I as far as the syringe, we talked about this. I think this is more of a cinematic choice. I think audiences are terrified of syringes. Yeah. And it happens a lot in the film. It's just oh, there's a syringe. You should be terrified, you know.
Well, we're not given the reason or knowledge of what is in the syringe. If it was lethal, then we'd give that minus spy points. But since we don't know, and we do have reason to think, we have supporting evidence that they're perpetrating their kills in ways that are trying to look like accidents, I'll excuse it from the minus spy points and give credit to I'll give the movie the benefit of the doubt on that one. Of course, when that doesn't work out for the first team, the second team comes in with no compunction about just shooting the hell out of the house. So and I think that makes sense too. Maybe you have a plan A, try to do it quiet. And if that doesn't work, especially if they're read in on Frank Moses' file, that you just plan B is take no chances. Just get the shit done. Although then, of course, they've also, I guess they're going to have to drag a bunch of their comrades' bodies out of the house, but I guess they've worked that out when they get to it. Slight minus spy points for the fact they named Unit 1, because when he hears that on the radio, if there's a Unit 1, that tells him there's a Unit 2.
Right.
He does his trick with putting bullets in the pan and turning on the burner. I went ahead and checked to see if that would work. Yes, it would, plus spy points.
That was great.
It's pretty clever. Yeah. Apparently, the velocity of the shells is really, really low. You might there's a danger you could put your eye out with them or something.
Right.
But like on Mythbusters, they did them in a microwave, and the bullets just cracked the glass. They didn't even penetrate, and the sounds would not be as loud as regularly discharged ammunition. But yeah, they would make a racket. What I liked even more, I've always had like a kind of a weird fetish for like super elaborate evacuation, like get the fuck out of Dodge planning. Like I don't know, let's see, did you see Parks and Recreation? Did you watch that show?
Yes, absolutely.
I think it might have been my favorite thing ever when he finds out that his wife is in town.
Oh, Ron Swanson. Which
Yeah.
wife? First wife or second wife? The elementary teacher or Megan McGauley, who is his real wife?
I don't remember. But the thing was, like, he runs into the hall and, like, I think he grabs something and, like, slams it into the wall to make a quick, like, foot hold so that he can leap up and reach up through the ceiling panels to grab his burn bag. Super funny. I love that kind of stuff. It's common for me in role-playing games to have my characters like kind of set up those kind of things. Like I like having like a second safe house that has like, extra ammunition, or like in this movie, like a storage shed that's filled with all the guns I might need. I just like that kind of stuff. And the way he's got his set up is you need a sledgehammer to break through the floor to get to it. Totally tickles my fetish, and it's plus 5 points, and that's actually my number one best tradecraft. Not just that he has the burn box, but the way that it is secreted is delicious for me. First thing he does when he gets out of here is to go and get Sarah, which is the lady he's been talking to and having this flirtatious relationship, and kind of leading up to maybe they'll meet, and they, at least their phone relationship has evolved to the point where each of them is thinking there could be some romantic potential here. Is to go and grab her, apparently thinking that she's going to be in immediate and mortal danger. Now, he turns out to be right, but I still don't like it. I think it's a huge leap of logic. And by don't like it, I don't mean I don't like it as far as like it makes the film any worse. It's just as far as logically thinking it through, I think it's too much, and it's another one of the things like the movie will just like kind of rush you past and not want you to think too hard about. In fact, too, it's weird because later in the film, Urban says something that indicates that they weren't monitoring the phone calls, and so that's at the very least a plot inconsistency. Minus 5 points.
Right. They should have been monitoring the phone calls. I think Frank is right to assume they've been monitoring the phone calls. So him going to Sarah is probably the best bet, because that's his main focus at the point. So he's thinking the other side would spot his motivation. But the fact that they weren't monitoring those phone calls, that's a good minus 5 points.
Okay. I also think like, okay, so even if he did need to get her out of danger, the fact that, they make some hand wavy motions about like maybe the safest place for her to be is at his side, but that's not truly logical. And they take her into like a lot of situations that she really does not need to be there for. And that there's no reason to take her along except that she's in the film and we like their interactions. So I want to give minus 5 points and call that my worst tradecraft of the movie, number 3.
Completely agree. Terrible tradecraft. She shouldn't have been brought along. But this goes back to my point earlier that this is a romance. And, you were talking about like being triggered for abduction type of thing. Like romance novels not always, but oftentimes have abduction or gray area rape You know, if you go to the bookstore and you look at the romance novel type of, and I only know this talking about like this type of stuff when like my mom complains about this all the time. Like she is like, why is this romantic? It's not romantic, but that's where the romance comes, and that's why I'm saying this film is really a romance. Like it's all about like Frank and Sarah and how the situation in the novel she was reading actually occurs for her. Like she's reading the novel and then it actually occurs.
I'll go as far as saying it's a romantic adventure, but I gotta quibble with like literally a romance has got like kind of a technical definition that this movie doesn't fall into, because it's not like in a romance along the way the question like the two characters are each other's antagonists. They're both the protagonist and the antagonist and of each other mirrored, and the plot resolution is them overcoming their own internal flaws to eventually be able to be together. And
Oh, well, from that standpoint, then you're right that it doesn't follow that definition. But I'm just talking about that, like, there are so many romance tropes in this film.
I see what you mean. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, and so like when our film discussion earlier, where it was like, oh, if you get triggered about a female abduction, that's why I was like super into like no, you don't understand, like all these like those like the cat lady romance novels always have abduction or like gray area rape in them, and it's like really concerning for me. And like I only bring this up because my mom gets triggered over this all the time because she's just like, this is not romantic, you know. But apparently that's what sells. They just want to be whisked away from like their normal, boring life, which is the premise of the film. Is Sarah's like some like customer service pension call person
she's a pencil pusher.
technician. Yeah, you know, and she's living alone, and we already get that scene with that one date she had that wanted to be asked upstairs, and she was like, yeah, no. And that's when we first see Frank like just broke into her house. It's like, hi, it's me, Frank. Like everything is gonna be okay, right? Like that's what I'm saying. This is like such a typical romance like trope. Like it like I think you're right by the technical definition, but like there's so many romance tropes going on, it's ridiculous.
Let's
It's
talk
not that
about.
I'm into romances. I'm just a weeb. I watch a lot of anime and films, and I don't care about particular genre. Like certain genres like really like tickle me, like like a mind fuck, or like a something super depressing like a Magnolia type of thing. Those are like right up my alley type of stuff. But like I'll watch anything if it's good. You know what I mean? So like as far as like romance tropes is like I can spot them because I try to expand my experience or what I'm exposed to. Like as long as it's good, it's got to be good. You can't give me like some Twilight shit and be like, "Oh, this is romance." Like, okay, you know, Ugh, I don't know. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent.
Let's talk about Carl Urban.
Yeah,
Any movie, any story really where we've got someone that's for some reason like falsely accused of something, which isn't quite the situation here, but someone that I don't know, the system is out to get or destroy. Everything's pointing to that the protagonist is a threat, a danger, needs to be taken out or captured or arrested, blah blah blah. But somebody's gonna, along the way develop some kind of suspicions that what they're being fed is not the real truth. And in this movie, Carl Urban as Agent Cooper is going to fill that role.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I think he's the only developed character. Like I think all the other characters are like kind of like just cookie cutter characters, even though they were great performances. I mean, we have an all star cast, but like Carl Urban's the only one with like an arc, and by arc I mean
You're
like a tiny
correct.
one. Yeah,
You're absolutely correct.
yeah.
Um, and nothing against movies that are essentially cartoons, which this one primarily is. If it's done well, like glory to ya. I was wanting to bring up that it's the second film that we've talked about where we've seen Carl Urban plant a fake fingerprint. The other one being Born Supremacy, and I gave minus spy points in
Which
the
also
Born.
had Brian Cox.
Oh, that's right. Oh, you're right.
Same. Oh, we.
Aha.
Call back. Go back and check our Born. What is it? Supremacy.
Yeah, Supremacy is the one that we did.
Yeah.
I gave it minus spy points in that one. Not necessarily that he couldn't do it, but I did not believe for a second that the CIA would not be able to detect a fake. I did a little more extra digging because I just wanted to double check my shit. And I found not so much evidence that this is something you can really do and do effectively, but in like my most direct evidence that it's something that kind of exists out there is that there was a 2003 article in Evidence Technology magazine, which talked about the correct ways of identifying a fingerprint as having been planted. So at least by 2003, somebody was thinking, hey, we need to spread this information that, this is a thing that can happen. So certainly if that's true, then by 2010, it's out there. I'll still stand by my minus spy points for Born Supremacy because everything I looked at of the ways you can fake a fingerprint are actually pretty flawed. And certainly the CIA would spot a fake in a second. But in this case, I'm not going to give minus spy points because we don't know who the agency Urban is trying to fool when he fakes this fingerprint on the guy that he's killing in his introductory scene, his little day at the office kind of thing.
I loved the meticulousness of planting hairs in the shower. And like in that little the thing at the bottom of the shower, the drain,
Mm-hmm.
where that whole scene is great. You know, it really went through the steps of kind of planting, but I'm glad there was an article of the difficulty of planting fingerprints because that's kind of concerning. Other things you could probably plant, like maybe like skin fibers or like hairs or whatever, but fingerprints are like a different thing.
It is a good scene, and along the way, the script is smart enough to look at this scene and say it needs to be humorous in some way in order to keep it again like all the movie vibrating at the same frequency. That they include. I'm not sure I call it a joke, but it's a gag of some kind that the whole time while he's doing this, he's apparently like he's talking to his wife about like some problems their kid is having at school. He's having a perfectly normal domestic conversation that even ends with, just before he kills the guy by kicking the stool out from under his feet where he's got him strung up. Like his very last thing is just confirming what kind of milk he's supposed to bring home from the grocery store.
Right. Yeah, this is another day on the job.
We're simultaneously establishing him as a badass and a threat, but the movie is subtly reminding us like, hey, don't take any of this too seriously because we're not going to take it too seriously. But that's his introductory, kind of day at the office kind of scene before they call him in. And apparently the conceit is that since the South African hit team failed to kill Frank Moses, now for some reason, the CIA is going to directly send a a Black Ops killer guy in the form of Carl Urban to finish the job. I didn't like the fact that when they give him this job, they just give him the information basically suggesting this guy was just an analyst, like, not a field operative, and certainly not a field operative with, a whole bunch of murder and Black Ops kind of stuff under his belt. That's minus spy points to me, because if they know anything about Frank Moses, they know that you can't, if you're going to send someone after him, like, they need to be prepared for what Frank Moses is.
Right. Absolutely. Definitely minus spy points on that one. Like, you should have, the person you're sending after, you should give them enough information to handle the threat they're going to deal with, unless they assume this guy is always prepared, which he seems to be that type of guy. He seems to be a very meticulous type of guy.
I also noticed that, Carl Urban finds the torn checks that Bruce Willis's character, Frank Moses, was tearing up, so he would constantly have more excuses to talk to Sarah on the phone. And I'll flag that as minus spy points, because I am morally certain that Frank Moses would be a kind of guy that's in the habit of shredding his documents.
Yeah, this is probably more of a cinematic thing. Like, you have that shot of him, like, piecing the two pieces of a check together, like, aha!
Yeah, putting the two torn pieces of check together, like, right in front of the camera. That's very much a, like, I don't know, color by numbers kind of filmmaking.
Yeah.
Look, he's putting the pieces together. Get it?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
He is going to put the pieces together. He is going to figure out that, I don't know. I don't remember how he figured out this guy is, like, way more dangerous than what you guys led me to believe. Maybe the fact that Frank's house is completely shredded. I'm not sure what I don't know if we saw all the carnage and if the bodies were still there, and we have no information about, like, what the cops' kind of reaction to that situation was. But one way or the other, he goes back to his boss and says, this guy's no analyst. He's super dangerous. You haven't been telling me everything. She sends him down to get Frank's file from the record keeper, Ernest Borgnine. He gets the file, which is ridiculously redacted. It's clearly just meant as a joke in the,
Right.
going along with the flavor of the film. But, as soon as he's coming out of the place, he's, like, on the phone telling someone, like, I need to know this information. I need to know what jobs he was on, who he worked with, what his history is. And that is dumb. I call it minus spy points, because you just looked at the file. The file's got nothing. Like, then you can't just call people up and, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm quibbling with a lot of stuff. There's a lot to quibble about. But that's Carl Urban and his deal. And, we'll circle around back to him as he resurfaces through the movie. For right now, let's go back to Frank and Sarah, who followed up on the reporter's death kind of situation and got their hands on a list. The list looks like everyone on it except Frank and this one pilot are dead. Frank can see on the list one of the names that is supposedly dead, actually supposedly died 2 years ago. He doesn't think is dead. And that would be his old friend Marvin, or his old frenemy, Marvin,
Right.
played by John Malkovich. Delightfully by John Malkovich.
He was my favorite character. I just want to point massive plus spy points, because you know how much, like, I'm into the conspiracy stuff. So, like, I got really giddy over this character just because of how, like, terribly paranoid he is constantly.
To a normal observer, or to just someone with just access to Google, there's only 2 names on the list that are still alive. That'd be the pilot and Frank Moses. But Frank, seeing Malkovich's name on the list, he'll make the quip when she questions, like, why are we going after him? He's been dead for 2 years. He says, like, oh, Marvin's been dead a lot of times. Like, he and perhaps some other people in the know would not look at a report of him having died in a fire as being any kind of evidence that Malkovich's character has indeed slipped this mortal coil. Once they get over their little, quips about killing each other, the last time why are you trying to kill me? I'm not. Well, you were the last time I met you, et cetera, et cetera. They just, make that little handshake and just kind of, move on. And for the rest of the movie, they're just regarded as total cool friends. I got minus spy points wondering how the fuck did the pig get through security, or Malkovich's enormous magnum, for that matter. The pig with the grenade launcher in it, like, yeah, it's cute, it's funny. Funnier is much funnier is after Malkovich like seems to like be just completely flipping out on some random lady at the airport. Later, when she shows up, it's one of the funnier like fuck yeah moments of the movie where she does reappear.
And this is one of the many moments that Marvin like shines. He clocked her. Like, he was right. But I also want to talk about how great she played her point as far as like an agent. She was like, I'm a Cold War banker. I work for Coldwell Bank. I'm a real estate agent. They empty her bags. Marvin's like, she's got a camera in her bag. And like we've talked about clutter. That's like a big spy thing, like where like just have shit on you that sells the story. Like I think I've brought this up before in our podcast where like, like they say don't have a baseball bat in your car. Like, and this is more law stuff, not spy stuff. Like a lawyer will tell you don't have a baseball bat in your car unless you have a baseball glove and a baseball ball, right? Like you need to like make things look different. They empty your purse and it's all just shit. Like, like this goes back to Spy Game where we were talking about where like Robert Redford's teaching Brad Pitt, like just keep shit like some gum and like, some cigarettes and a lighter, like shit that makes sense. So like,
and the technical name for that we've run into is clutter, right?
Yeah, actually the term is pocket litter.
Oh yeah, that's right. So we like her for having read that page of the secret agent manual.
Yeah, it's just really interesting. Like Marvin clocks her following them, and then like she's freaking out, and like so the movie like if you're just watching the film is just like just ignore any sort of like judgment. Like you're like, oh wow, okay, Marvin was wrong. He's just a psycho, right? We later find out he was right. She was following them. But what I love about this scene is she actually just had a buttload of pocket litter. There was no camera, there was no gun, there was no she's just a real estate agent. That's all she is, and that's all she'll ever be. And then she just shows up with an RPG later.
What I don't like about the scene is the again, it goes back to the idea. I think that the bad guys should have gone after Pilot Guy much earlier. It's just very like cinematic tunnel vision storytelling that we follow our protagonists, that we have to follow our protagonists to get to the pilot and to get to the moment just before he's about to say the name that would spill the beans on the whole thing. that it's at the last moment, very dramatic, that the sniper shot comes from the helicopter and silences him. They should have just handled this on the side, like on their own time. It's like in some movies, the heroes and the villains are both proceeding on their own separate timelines. And in some movies, we kind of like are meant to just forget about what the villains can and should be doing. Like the villains kind of go to sleep, and we just follow the heroes until there's like, what the scriptwriter thinks is an interesting point to reintroduce the villains and merge their timelines. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Now, if Frank Moses didn't know before that he was in deep water, he definitely knows now, because like this attack on the airport is pretty serious. Their visit to Malkovitch did, and what his information that he was able to glean from the list is it does have to do with Guatemala in 1981. So Frank Moses, along with Malkovitch and his girl Friday, Sarah Ross, they want to break into Langley and find out more about Guatemala 1981. And for some reason, the way that he thinks they're going to do that is to go to another frenemy. It's kind of like in some stories, there's a king's journey where he, like, at every stage, at every chapter, he accumulates another ally. So at this point, he's picked up Malkovitch, and the next sequence seems to be really like an excuse for him to accumulate some further allies. For some reason, he is going to need to talk to the Brian Cox character, who is I think still active. You think maybe retired. It's not exactly clear. KGB agent. Retired or not, Brian Cox and Frank Moses are going to make their standard for this movie jokes about killing each other or dreaming of killing each other. In the case of Cox, he mentions that, well, I still owe you for Igor, who is my cousin.
Igor.
Frank Moses counters with, Igor's not dead. I flipped him. And whether that's true or not, it's plus 5 points in the moment. And I'll go with my best tradecraft number 2, even though it's not necessary, because I assure you the scriptwriters would have just hand waved their way past this in the first place. He's here because he wants to infiltrate Langley, find out more about Guatemala, which is problematic in a way that we're going to talk about later. Here, I want to point out a big problem. I think, I'll call it total bullshit. The Russians would have all this information on infiltrating Langley, all these passcodes and security protocols and everything. And even if you can buy that, I cannot forgive the movie for the fact that Frank Moses, a supposedly loyal CIA retiree, loyal to the U.S., we have no reason to suspect otherwise, that he would know that Brian Cox has all this information that compromises Langley's security and not tell the CIA about it. Minus 5 points, my number 2 worst tradecraft of the movie. They're going to go into Langley. They're going to, again, bring Sarah along. We're going to ding it again. Minus 5 points. There's no reason for her to be there. It does turn out to be fortuitous that she's along, I guess, because, with the dropped contact lens thing.
When she drops the contact lens and then the alarm bells go off and then the high security SWAT team shows up, points guns at them. She's just like, The general has dropped his contact lens. This is great, great improvisation. Because, like I've said in before, like when I pick the best and worst, I try to find things that are like pivotal to the story.
There's a couple things that I only caught from checking out like the Goofs page on IMDb, but I thought they were worth mentioning. At certain points when, quote unquote General Moses is being challenged by armed guards, they give him a hand salute. And somebody mentioned that armed guards in the performance of their duty do not lower their weapons to hand salute anyone. Mm-hmm. Like if you're on, we understand, or at least we kind of understand. Neither of us is super versed in military protocol, but we've always understood like there's a certain like, culture of saluting that's very significant in the military. But apparently, like if you're on guard duty, you're not supposed to salute under any circumstances.
Well, that makes sense. That pulls us back to Forrest Gump, where like Lieutenant Dan is like, "Don't fucking salute me. Snipers will shoot me." Like.
Oh, right. But I can think of I feel like I can think of not by name, but like countless movies where you see, the big brass show up and the guards salute them as they go through. And apparently, that's not correct. Anytime you see that, that's a zzz. So you're not supposed to salute anyone, not even the president. Period. Also, someone mentioned, probably a veteran, that also for someone that's supposedly a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, someone said that Frank's salute is completely terrible. So someone dinged you on that, Mr. Bruce Willis. Yeah. Go to salute school before you make a movie.
Right.
Here's
especially if you're ex-CIA, you should know all of the salutes. That's part of your job. Learn your shit.
Here's a better one. And this is a little pedant. This is not a little pedantish. It's very pedant, but I liked it. Now he's wearing a U.S. Army general officer's uniform, and somebody noted that he's wearing the uniform of a 4-star general, and that is particularly risky because there are only, and it's even by law, there's only so many 4-star generals that can be on active duty at any given time. This person says the Army would have had about 10 at the time of filming. And it is most probable that anyone at any of the security at Langley or the Pentagon or anybody like that, they would have known by name and face, they would have known the 10 4-star generals that existed at the time.
Oh shit!
You know what I mean?
That should have made my worst. Wow,
it's kind of a deep cut, but I liked it.
No, that's good. That's really good.
Because you can't pick that up unless you are that spot on that you notice that he's a 4-star general. Like if he was a 2-star general, like whatever. There's probably like 300 of those guys.
Yeah.
But a 4-star general or a 5-star general, like now you're getting apparently up to this like rarefied level where like, everyone knows who you are. That's like, right. At least that's involved in security around these kind of facilities. So yeah, you like that one? I like that one.
I like that one a lot. That's a good find. That should have made my worst. That they shouldn't have dressed him up as a 4-star, but a 2-star.
The ruse works. The plan works. They do get to go see Ernest Borgnine in the records department, and he cheerfully hands him over the Guatemala file, which is only partially redacted. So they're going to have some more information. We're going to talk about the information we get from the Guatemala file in a bit. Here's our quibble, right? Why don't you tackle this one?
I have no idea. After he got the Guatemala records, he goes to Cooper's office, who's played by Carl Urban, and just starts a fight for no reason. I don't get it. Like, why would he do that? There's no reason for him to see him.
Absolutely none.
Right? There's nothing. It doesn't make sense.
What we see on screen, he's triggered by the fact that Borgnine tells him, like, hey, by the way, this guy accessed your file yesterday. And he says, oh, change of plans. But the change of plans, it accomplishes zero.
Right. There's other than an action scene to keep the audience busy, right? Which I guess cinematically is the only reason.
An excuse for a very great Aerosmith song to be played during a fight.
Right. Yeah. Like it's a great scene, like as far as a fight scene goes, but like there's no reason for this to happen.
None.
Like none. So this is making my number 2 worst tradecraft, and I think this made your number 1.
That was my number 1. Yeah, it's a total like Ouroboros kind of snake eating its tail situation because the product of the fight is that he gets Urban's key card, which they use to escape, but they wouldn't have needed the key card to escape if he hadn't started the fucking ruckus in the first place. Classic example of a scriptwriter just like hand waving some shit off and thinking that we're not going to pay attention to it. The firefighter disguise that they use to escape with, I want to give that minus. It's fucking
really.
It's fucking Langley. Like, it's cute. I like it. I don't buy it.
Yeah, they probably would have cameras everywhere. This goes back to my quibbles about Spy Game. Like,
well, no, my thing is that you don't check like the firefight. Like, they check the guy that Bruce Willis is carrying, but they don't check him because he's dressed up as a firefighter. And I think Langley's tighter than that, even under a situation where like the building's on fire.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. What I did like about the explosive device is the time. He put it in a plastic gallon bottle, which made the chemical it was sitting in take time to eat through it and then react with what was inside of the bottle.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know how realistic it is, but it's great for a movie.
They make their way out, and we find out that Joe is alive. And Joe, that's the Morgan Freeman character, who by this point in the movie we had thought was dead. But this is a weird one. When Frank found out that Joe was dead, I mean, we didn't actually specifically get any like dialogue stating so. It was mostly done like through kind of innuendo. But there was a huge crime scene. There were cops all over the place. There were ambulances. Everything was roped off, etc., etc. So why did anybody think Joe was dead? At the very most, the people at the retirement home would have seen possibly evidence that Joe was missing, and with some evidence suggesting that, like, and with a dead CIA assassin left.
Yeah.
Some kind of altercation had happened and Joe's missing. They wouldn't have reported that he's dead unless there was a body. And there was no body because he's not dead.
Right.
Let's cut it here. We've gotten to Langley, and we've got in hand the Guatemala file that corroborates the reporters list and gives our hero characters most of the information that they'll really need to proceed along the plot line. And I don't mind saying it, a lot of it doesn't really add up if you think about it, but what we'll do is come back next week and have our say about that.
As always, the best way to make sure you don't miss out on that is to hit the subscribe button on iTunes, Google, or your favorite podcast app. Also, you can find updates on our Facebook page or website, spieslikeus.net. And if you can help us out, give us some feedback by rating us and leaving comments. We're always trying to improve the show, and your thoughts would be a big help.
The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.